Welcome to Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you are looking for an interesting commercial, marketing, and sales podcast that is bold, unfiltered, unconventional, and authentic, you are at the right place. Curious how to play the game better and smarter? We will share how we crack the code to hyper growth for our customers. We will invite amazing people. We will share our experience, the first attempts in learning, cracking the code, and finally the results. And last but not least, we will give you food for thought. Now, let's get started.
Hello everybody and welcome to the podcast of Serving Your Market like a King or Queen. And today we have a special guest. Today we welcome Amauri Ayala Mendoza as our special guest. So welcome Amauri.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure is all us, right, Lisbeth?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So let me briefly introduce our guest of today, right? So Amauri has been working in sales for the last 5 years. He's coming from the SDR or BDR or telesales, whatever you want to call it, right? So he explicitly mentioned the SDR role. Exactly, the development role, all the way to the head of sales. We will go a little bit deeper into Amauri's story and the milestones, and obviously it's ingrained also into this to the podcast and the topic of today. But again, welcome Amauri, and great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Actually, I was actually kind of curious because I've been talking with Lisbeth for a very long time about this podcast. So hey, finally we're here.
Finally,
I'm excited.
Cool. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so what is the promise of today's podcast, right? So first question to the audience: do you believe in playing the infinite game and the power of commercial togetherness to succeed externally? Amauri Ayala Mendoza is a sales leader with a learning mindset. He sees so much potential for companies that adopt growth through togetherness. In this conversation, he will share his thoughts, first attempting learnings, and also his lessons learned. So today's topic, what it will be all about, is the importance of cross-departmental alignment, attracting and retaining customers. But yeah, before we go actually to the start of this conversation, we have always a tradition, and it is today about, again, having a drink with our guests. So Amauri, what are you having today?
I'm having a beer. So I'm fully integrated into the Dutch culture. So for that reason, I'm having like a Heston Young. Let me see if I'm pronouncing correctly. Yeah, but it's one of my favorite beers here.
Nice. Enjoy.
Good to hear that, man. Cheers. How about yourself, Lisbeth?
A glass of white. One of my favorites this time, a Chardonnay. And you,
nice.
Jeroen?
Cheers as well. So I'm having a Hooglander. It probably translates into Highlander, black IPA. So I always pick this one at my local shop, right? So what intrigued me about the story of this beer is, and obviously the topic of today, it is very important to send your teams, right? And in this case, your cross-departmental teams or your one commercial team really on a mission into the market where the magic happens in order to attract the right customers and retain them as well. And when I was looking at this beer, it's all about also sending your herd on a mission into the market in this way as well. So I thought, let's see if this tastes good with the conversation that we're having today. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Looking forward to it. Well, the honor is mine, Amauri, to ask you the first question. So this is really a cheers, Jeroen.
Go ahead. Shoot.
So my first question to you is, you introduced you coming from SDR roles and now you're head of sales. So what I'm very curious about is, how did you get where you are today?
It's kind of funny.
I can imagine this didn't happen once, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how I got into sales because I used to be an event manager before that. This is how I started my career after school. And I was organizing events for investors in small companies so that they can get funding. And through organizing all of these events, I got to meet a lot of startups, a lot of CEOs, and I was so impressed by the passion that they had about the job, what they wanted to achieve, and so forth, that I said, okay, I'm gonna go into technology. So I left my job basically right after school. So hey, I wasn't really too worried about the job because it was my first one. Then I wanted to get into IT, so I became a release coordinator in TomTom. I did that for about a year just to get into the ICT industry, and then I combined it to my favorite things, that was events and technology, because I started working for a company called Double Dutch, which is now acquired by Cvent. And in there, we were selling an application towards event organizers so they can really measure ROI. And I struggled quite a lot at the beginning in my SDR period. And that was because I had to learn how to sell everything from scratch. I didn't have any training on it. So it took around 6 to 7 months, and I hit quota for the first time. And I was like, okay, never stopping after this one. that high of like getting there, reaching that goal, that really made it for me. But then I started developing more and more into, okay, an account executive. I did that for a couple of other companies, but I always did it kind of like in a startup environment. And I really, really liked getting to one point to another together with the whole team to have one centralized goal. And then I figured out the only way to do that is to be in management position. So, hey, I'm going to go there. So that's what kind of drove me into it a bit.
So you know what it means, the word failing, the first attempts in learning and figuring it out.
Much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, thank you for that.
Nice, man. Good to hear that, Amauri. So let's go into the next stage of the conversation, I would say, right? So I want to talk a little bit with you also about the growth fundamentals. So we talked a little bit earlier, also about playing a new game, believing in commercial togetherness and the infinite game. And actually, what is done then is saying goodbye to just generating growth as it in revenue, right? Growth is so much more than revenue, through separate entities like sales and marketing and handovers and those types of things, and really embracing and playing a new game around growth through togetherness. So just curious also on your take on this and why it is important to you to create cross-departmental alignment.
And for me, it's pretty important because of actually growth. So everybody thinks growth happen because of sales. And to be honest, I was one of those when I started, when I was a salesperson and I was closing deals left and right. So one of the things that I understood when I got into management is that if you look at growth and revenue as a whole, not just from a sales perspective, but look at it from a marketing, sales, and customer success. So, and also account management. Then you see that the real growth is by aligning on one single point of message. Because if I bring 1 million companies in, that means that customer success needs to achieve whatever goal I say. And if customer success or account management are not renewing my contract, growth goes down the window. So it's better to not grow or not close 1 million deals just for the sake of closing deals, but closing the right type of deals that will unlock growth for the company. So that's one of the things that became really, really important to me, because everything is intertwined if you want to really unlock growth on a scalable way.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. I think it's the term I hear also a lot around that, right? And in particular now, actually, we dive a little bit deeper into the revenue part of the growth element, right? But it is actually a team sport, right? I think that's an important aspect. Revenue is a team sport instead of handing over the battalion or whatever you want to call it, right? In a running race, right? That's not handing over the MQL and then handing over the SOL and those types of TGLs and whatever, right? That's the old world.
And you know what the funny thing, that in a really startup environment, you have like 3 hats. Like you have to do like 3 different type of jobs. Sometimes you need to help on customer success. Sometimes you need to help with the account management. And it's all fine because you know that is for the sake of the growth of the company. You're just doing it for that reason. But it is really impactful when you understand, okay, I know what I need to do, because if I do this right, customer success is going to be successful because I know the process on that end. I know how that feels. So, hey, I'm going to pass it in the right way. I'm going to manage the expectation of my clients in the right way so that it comes in and unlock that growth after. So that's one of the things that I always try to focus when we try to close a deal.
Yeah, that mindset, I think, around really togetherness, right? And seeing it from a perspective how it is also impacting the other family members, right, of the team is, that's exactly a mindset which you should cherish. Thanks for sharing that, Amauri.
Yeah. And you said it already, Jeroen, right? The ones who believe in playing the infinite game through commercial togetherness will succeed. So there's a whole kind of new, maybe kind of trend maybe that is going on, and that team sport plays, of course, a very important role in that. But Amauri, why do you think that this is so important specifically for companies that are in a starting up phase? Or maybe ask it differently, is it more important for a startup than maybe an enterprise or a scale up?
Like, I believe it's important for a startup for sure. It's the most important phase because you are doing so many different things. In a startup, it's not like, okay, you do sales and that's it, and hey, you do it well, and then you focus on, right? That's not what happens. What happens is more like, okay, normally you close the deal, the client is talking to you, sometimes talking to your customer success manager, and the work kind of gets a bit mixed here and there. So understanding those parts of each level of the organization, so how, okay, the impact is of marketing, that marketing conveys the right type of messaging to your clients so that when it comes to sales, you close it within the right kind of expectations so that when it comes to customer success, they can actually unlock that impact that the customers are looking for. And finally, account management can renew very easy. So at that level, it's very, very important because you're doing multiple things at the same time. So if I have the mindset that every pillar in the organization, so the potential head of sales, the potential head of marketing, the potential head of customer success need to be aligned on what that looks like. So that when somebody asks for it, hey, can I do this? You need to say, hey, no, remember that this is going to affect your teammate, or like Jeroen put it very well, your family member, from this is going to make her look bad, or she's not going to achieve that. So what's the point of doing it? So constantly reminding them of that.
Do you think? Because you're more flexible, you're everything is kind of new. So is it offering more opportunities in, or maybe in a more natural way that it, well, kind of naturally exists or happens, or is it still really something you have to put effort in?
Yeah, you need to put a lot of effort in because, as you guys know, we all have an ego. Mm-hmm. And sometimes jumping into a job that is not really yours, especially at that part of the organization, there has to be a lot of trust that you're trying to do things with the best of your intentions, right? So that is something that needs to be very, very clear in this type of organization. And sometimes you have that line that you blur exactly because you're a startup as well. Mm-hmm. But you need to keep in mind that, okay, you're doing it to help you out. I'm not doing it to hurt you or anything like that. So that's something that you always need to kind of be reminded of. But it's very hard, to be honest. It's not easy, especially when you have people that are very dominant, put it like that.
You were freezing for a moment. Did you see that as well, Jeroen?
A little bit. But,
A little bit. I think we're okay.
Oh.
Okay.
But I can imagine, Amauri, that because I think what's quite critical, at least what I see happening around, right? And I think it's also it was also on the part of the label of the beer, right? It's you need to be able to send your herd, right, on a mission into the market. So if your mission of your company is just as we in the Netherlands say, right, it's hanging on the wall or on slide deck 1 for your investors to impress them or your enterprise customers or whatever, right? That is not enough, right? If you have a strong mission, which the employees feel part of, right? Where they actually are invited to join. When then there are challenges arising because you are going outside of blurring lines and so on, you all feel that you're part of the mission. And if it's contributing to that, then it could be helpful, I guess, right? Is that also something that you experience on that level?
Yeah, exactly. So that is something that at least from every startup that I work with, is kind of the experience that you want to achieve. Everything is kind of like, okay, we want to provide this type of value, of this type of impact to our customers. And seeing that growth and discovering that is the fun part, at least in my book. Just to kind of see that, hey, we're getting there slowly but steady, but we're getting there. And sometimes it's like really fast when you get there and like you finally achieve it. You see all of those inbounds coming in the right way, asking for the right type of messaging. And you're like, okay, now this is working. We achieved it. So that's the reward that you get afterwards.
That sounds good.
Awesome. So, then the question, obviously, right? We understand the why, and people are most likely activated and inspired to take action here. But how do you bring this into practice, right? And who are your core stakeholders?
You know who did this amazingly well that I'm still impressed is Jacob in Dutch, like that, from Winning by Design. He created this revenue program that basically allows you to unlock that togetherness through models and blueprints, which is basically the middle way between big companies and smaller companies. Because with the model, you know what to focus on. So your mind is, okay, this is where we want to go, and this is what we're doing it. So you help me explain that well. And the blueprints that you have get you to achieve that fairly easy. Because then you know, okay, the blueprint is simple. Let's focus on impact. So what is it that we want to give to our customers at the end of the day? So, hey, from marketing perspective, how does that message will look like so that it aligns to what we can achieve right now? Then I come in and then I start preaching that. So from my end, I need to sell that value, especially when it's a new deal. Meaning that I need to understand what the capabilities are that we can do as of right now and not try to oversell that at that point and really align with the customer that this is what we can do and this is what we're going to be achieving together. If the client buys into that, then customer success has a very good chance of being successful because we kind of already know that we have achieved that and we have already a blueprint, which is the thing that I love about the Winning by Design. That blueprint allows you to guide the customers to see that impact much faster. And then if the customer sees that impact, renewal is a no-brainer because who doesn't like making money or saving money? It's kind of like saying to the customer then, okay, so you don't want to work with me? Tell me why do you want to make money? And an entity is decided for that particular reason. So, hey, that blueprint of getting that together, and basically what it comes down is to literally understanding throughout the whole organization, what is the impact that you bring into the customer with your tool, with your service, or with your solution.
Exactly, man. Yeah, and I think that's quite helpful, right? It's building that right structure and foundation, rolling out the blueprints and the templates and the processes and so on. It's obviously quite critical. I think you mentioned that as well. It's an element around adoption and implementation, because the frameworks and processes won't implement themselves, right? It would be nice, right? Would make our lives easier. We could sit on Aruba and having a beer there, but that doesn't work like that, obviously. So the adoption and implementation piece, right? It's super critical, and we.
And I think very underestimated, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting it implemented is one, but adoption.
Yeah, that adoption is the hardest part. Like, to be honest, for us, we haven't achieved that yet. Like, it's one of the hardest things, because I recently was trying to do the togetherness through different efforts. But I'm very glad that I did that course by Jacob, because it allows me to kind of put everything together. It's like a puzzle, right? And in that puzzle, now I know exactly what I need to do.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah, and that is the hardest part, because you have intuitions on how to connect it, but then people start arguing about why. Explain it better. How do you see that? And if you don't have those steps already mapped out in your head, it basically creates some doubt within the team. Yeah. And when you have some doubts in the team, then believing in you becomes much harder. That's why a lot of investors says, okay, I want experience, because when you have a person that already done it already, it becomes much easier then, because they already know that blueprint.
Yeah, I can imagine. That is what we experience it as well. It doesn't help, if we help a customer just in a kind of project and then good luck with it. That's why we always prefer going in a kind of contract or subscription model to actually guide our customers in that whole implementation, adoption, collaboration, coaching as well, one-on-one. We find it very important, because what you're saying, there's so many, different personalities in a company, and and you want to get everyone on board, and everyone is having a different level of understanding of the importance of doing it. So yeah, that is what we experience as well.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, man.
You can really see that, especially when you want to do certain things within the organization and you're not quite sure, then it's make it really hard to explain to a team member. And normally, if you don't have that clear, you need to either ask for help, let's make it together, then you make them buy into it, but otherwise it creates a lot of doubts as well.
Yeah, and do pilots and those types of things, right? I think that helps helpful as well a lot. I think the experience that we had, for example, 4 years ago or so, we started to develop a pilot project around ICP, so ideal customer profile, not the way most SaaS companies are doing it with demographics and firmographics, but injecting the human element in it, right? With culture, mission, vision, and those types of things. If we would have rolled that out, we learned that the hard way years before that, and for the entire company, there was a backlash. We started to pilot it and actually had some advocates driving the messaging for us and the sales team and so on, right? So that's at least the experience that we have, especially if you're taking up bigger chunks and rolling out larger new processes and so on. Try to pilot and test it and get people on board with you.
Yeah, because there are a lot of methods. For example, the way that I combine those blueprints with getting results is that I shift from absolute numbers to conversions. So,
cool.
Okay. Like, instead of having a lot of numbers coming in, I want to have better conversions. So conversions from prospect to a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead to an actual opportunity, to an opportunity to closing, to somebody saying, okay, he's onboarded, to, okay, have achieved impact. If I measure that, and if you do the math, this is what one of the things that Winning by Design showed me, is that even with the same amount of leads or even less, you can achieve a higher growth, because the numbers coming in are going to create an exponential growth throughout the organization. Even with less leads coming in, which normally typically was like, okay, I know that I close 15%. So I need this many leads in order to get my 15%, which is, oh, do I want to grow? I need to double that, which is basically, okay, I'm improving on the volume, but not really improving on the quality.
And maybe not even, not even at the on the deal value as well.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on the right accounts,
that have a substantial potential to upsell or just are larger, directly stepping into a large subscription. I think that combination, right, making sure you speak to the right accounts with love at first sight, and fixing the what is it, the gaps in your funnel or the leakages, then that's the way to go, I would say, man. No, thanks for sharing that. So would that also be like your around that? Is that also centered around your first attempt in learning, or what?
Yes, that was my first thing, because I was trying to do or achieve that togetherness by just saying, hey guys, we need to think together, we need to go to a specific goal together. But when you want to achieve that in that way, it takes a lot of tries, because you first need to create that trust, and that creating that trust takes some time. And then how to achieve certain goals also becomes a discussion and a debate. So the whole process becomes too long. So you can achieve it in different ways. And this is why, again, the guys from Winning by Design, changing that mentality within sales becomes very important, because you're doing it through a model that you're controlling with data, essentially, which for me, that's perfect, because I can see the data in terms of the conversions. So one of my initiatives within the company was, okay, instead of having separate dashboards about, okay, how is customer success doing, how is sales doing, I combine it all into one sheet. And then I made one of those conversions and see, okay, where we are in our average per quarter, which then makes it really easy to say, okay, if I have a lot of sales qualified leads, but I'm not hitting my targets, let's say, in getting new accounts, so my conversion is a bit off in there, in getting new deals in, am I potentially putting everything through just because of the sake of it? Which means then I need to go to the drawing board and say, okay, maybe my qualification process should be harder.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the things that I like your company for as well. That ICP shows right there how important it is. Because if you don't have the right ICP,
your conversions will drop down instantly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything starts there.
Yeah, and I would say, talking about that commercial togetherness, so on one hand, where are you after? So that is kind of the market. But at the same time, that's how you're working as a team, and how all your planning and how your working processes, etc., are aligned, are so critical to success. I also wonder, in your first attempts of learning, do you also, because of what you were explaining, like it's hard to get everyone on the same page sometimes, but when it happens, do you also celebrate it? Because it's really, it is hard sometimes, to make a change or introduce a new way of working. But at the same time, even if there are small wins, it's so nice to have fun together and celebrate.
Actually, that's a good one. I the celebration part, I never really put a lot of effort into it because we only celebrated like, okay, we got a big deal, let's celebrate it all together, right?
Like ringing the bell and so on.
Those are the things that we really celebrated, but not achieving those goals. Yeah, that's a good one. I should think a bit more about that, because that's a pretty good milestone when you achieve that.
Exactly. And then it's, even though things are hard, but if you're still able to achieve it together and taking all those hurdles, it's
exactly
nice to appreciate each other, even though it was tough, or but you did it, you made it, you did it, and ready for the next step.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Here. Just
See?
for free.
You learn something.
Nice. So if you look at, so let's go a little bit more into the future growth of things, right? I think you talked a lot about also the importance of centralized reporting. I think that's definitely something which is quite underestimated. And I really liked it how you were bringing that all together and reviewing that from a, like you said, right? It's marketing, sales, CS, because ultimately seen, if we would bring in the wrong customers, right, the CS needs to handle the shit, right? We all need to make sure that that is all aligned and connected. And I like the element that you described as well, Lisbeth. Indeed, it's not only celebrating revenue wins, right? That would be the old world, because growth is so much more than just revenue. It's also transforming as a team, overcoming challenges, becoming better every day, right? Increasing happiness and so on. So thanks for sharing all these insights and learnings, Amauri. If you look at the future growth, right? So what are the top priorities from your perspective for the company you're working for in the seeding series?
So from my side are the things that I want to achieve in a year from now, because for now, one of the things that I want to truly achieve is around the lines of what Elizabeth said, getting this really implemented within the organization. So my ultimate goal is to have a centralized way to report, meaning that will help my CEO with all of the numbers without me there every single time. We align more on the conversions, and I want to see growth per department. So if sales grows by 1%, customer success should be grow by 1%, because that makes it scalable. So what I want to do is stabilize the growth of the company into, look, this is what we can do and how we can scale, so make it predictable. Once I have that, then it's all about growing. Then I put my head down. I don't think anymore, because I figured out the process. I have my models. I have my blueprints. Just hire a bunch of people, training them well around the same model. Just keep your head down and grow. But I think it's going to take me a year. Hopefully less, but it's going to take me some time. It's easier said than done.
I really love the way how you bring both your passion for frameworks and methodologies and blueprints, as well as the human element, and connecting these things all together from a cross-departmental alignment perspective, right? Because more often, let's keep it like that, I hear a passion being expressed for example, the human side of things, and more or less a little bit too much neglecting the frameworks, methodologies, and blueprints. But I think bringing all these together, I truly find that at least inspiring to hear you talking about that.
Yeah, I like that a lot as well. That's one of the reasons that I became also head of sales in a smaller company, because in a big company, changing to this is quite hard. But if you're small and you integrate it into the process from the very beginning, then it should be easier, at least from my perspective. So when you add a person to that process, they believe in it right from the start.
So actually you're saying start from the beginning, when you're in a startup phase, when you have the chance, start building the right processes and adopt the right blueprints, etc., to build that foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of one of the things that is always happening with startups is that they just do, and then the investment kicks in, and then a lot of the things goes into figuring that part out. While I'm like, okay, the moment that I have an investment in, and I understand that from an investor point of view, he wants results. So I want to be able to give them the results. I want to spend time on, okay, let's figure out this process here. Let's figure out the process that, which is ultimately going to happen, especially when you want to do it on a bigger scale. But once you have that basic engine, then you can grow it pretty fast. At least that's my belief. I haven't done it yet. So
it is our experience. So I agree, as long as you have the right blueprints and processes, of course, and that's and also working on the togetherness and connecting the milestones to the different departments, etc., to make sure that you're on the same track to growth. That's important as well.
Yeah, and that shared belief, like you said, Amauri, on top of that, right? Because looking in hindsight, obviously on the journey that Lisbeth and me have been on, most of the things where we drove loads of transformation and change was not in our job description. We were not even asked for to do it. We were probably more or less, it was not always really welcome that we did it. Later on, they thanked us for it, but it is all about driving those change, right? But it's based because you set a strong vision and a shared belief, and then the blueprints and the frameworks are just to help you to make a faster time to impact. The frameworks, the blueprints and the frameworks in itself, without having a strong vision and a compelling story, it's just a bunch of frameworks, right? But if you can connect it to something which you believe in and get your team with you, then magic can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And this is because normally when you go and work for a startup, that vision is already there. At least for me, I won't go work for a startup unless I think they're doing something amazing, right? Because startup is not about the money. So it's not about the hours either. It's about basically trying to change something within an industry, which is something that I really love.
Yes, and I think what I hear very often right now, and I think that fits really well because, change, being a change agent is a kind of negative word. What you hear a lot right now is that entrepreneurship. And I think what you are explaining is you need that mindset because you really want to make the change in the company.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So this was really a nice conversation, Amauri. But we have one more question for you.
Go for it.
And that is, what is still on your bucket list? 2. Well, you can mention more, but at least one private and one business related. Wow.
Okay, let me start with the private because that is something that should be easier, but now that I think about it, it's hard.
You make us curious.
It should be easy because it's my private life, so I should know myself very well. So, no, in terms of my private life, what haven't I done? That's the hard part. That's the thing that I always want to kind of answer myself that it's like worth mentioning from my side. Let me see. I think it's gonna be at some point that starting a family. I'm pretty scared of that one, to be honest, but that's one of the things
survive.
that really...
Everyone survives.
Yes, but not when you're working a lot of hours because you work for startups.
That's true. So you have to scale that business very quick now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On a work level, it suddenly became quite easy. I want to grow the company to at least Series B because that's one something that I want to do. I always liked coming in, kind of a drive within the mess of the startups because it's fun making sense out of it. So I think they're probably going to say, okay, I want to grow the business into Series B. Let's say everything is a bit more formalized. Then I'm probably going to go back and start it again. So one of the milestones that I want to do with Insight to date is that I truly want to get it to a Series B level.
That's ambitious. So how much time do you give yourself to Series B?
Honestly speaking, I was thinking 3 to 4 years max.
Okay. Well, we have it recorded now, right?
Yeah. So the investors are happy.
CEO, otherwise, don't share this recording with my CEO. Otherwise, he's gonna hold me to it.
It's always good to have ambitions.
Exactly.
No, thanks for sharing that, man. So No, I'm looking back at a great conversation. Lots of new learnings as well. I think for me at least, and I hope we inspired you as well on some elements, Amauri.
Yeah, it's better show me that right thing of celebrating those small things as well. So I need to keep that in mind. We tend to forget those, and that's pretty bad in my book as well.
Cool, man. So yeah, we're looking back at the conclusion actually of this podcast, right? To wrap it up, probably quite high level. First, I would say, instead of the battalion and the handovers and the separate departments and those types of things, we truly envision that it's a team sport, right? That's critical and important to have a cross-departmental alignment to attract and retain the right customers. Of course, there needs to be a strong and compelling mission, but it's worth nothing if it's just a thing hanging on the wall or in slide deck 1 for your investors. You really need to invite people to join you on that mission. And then the frameworks and the blueprints and the structure, super critical to make a fast time to impact and reassure that when you grow to series A, B, C, or D, you don't end up with a messy wire of things, but have a great structure to build upon and grow, scale, and not only from a financial standpoint, but also from a transformative standpoint and a people and happiness standpoint. So thanks for sharing all your wisdom and experience, and hope you enjoyed your drink as well, Amauri.
I did. I haven't finished it yet, but I will.
But yeah, it's a beer, as you told me, right? So, but if people want to reach out to you to hear more about a sales strategy or rum, how can you reach out to you?
That is true, though. LinkedIn, I'm pretty visible there. Not that much in the Instagram, to be honest. Mainly LinkedIn.
Cool.
So they can really find me there. Yes. You say my name really like 2 or 3 times. So, hey, I think they're going to get it from it.
Yeah,
Plus,
exactly.
It's really hard to spell it. It's not the easiest one either.
Just go to LinkedIn, the one and only Amauri, and then everybody will.
Yeah, there's not a lot of us in LinkedIn.
Exactly. So, no, thanks again for being our amazing guest. Yeah, we look forward to welcome everybody for next year, for next time's episode. And thanks again, and we'll wrap it up from here.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll catch you in the next episode.